So while I would say that I'm a happy and very lucky produce of the COVID time when people had a lot of time on their hands.
The previous generation did not have the concept of social media or hearing feedback and criticism.
Yeah.
Okay, right? And that was, you write a book and you're done.
Correct.
ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा एक रिव्यू आ जाएगा and you'll say कि book बकवास है.
हम ये रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, किसी की जिंदगी में कुछ फर्क पड़ भी रहा है वगैरह वगैरह, go to the love folder because that's when you will see people who genuinely have had their life change because of what we have done. And I like that balance because then it just brings us to reality and keeps us honest.
How different are the economics of independent content creation for various social media platforms? Like when you're doing something maybe for, and you've won, I mean, you've like won some serious awards on Insta, on LinkedIn, Top Voices, etc. So obviously you're doing a very good job. So how does the economics work for these platforms?
I was convinced that people who are investing in mutual funds, stocks, gold, real estate are duffers of the first order.
Okay.
Because there's only one way to make money, and that's startups. And I'm the cool dude who knows that.
Folks, welcome to Paisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and today's show is really special. Since we start a new sub-series on how businesses make money, we're starting the series with a totally awesome guest. He is an entrepreneur and one of India's top content creators, winner of many awards. He's also the best-selling author of 2 books, and his latest book is already a bestseller. I'm sure that you subscribe to his channels because he's got a following of more than 10 million. That's a crore in Hindi terms. My guest, Ankur Warikoo, is here to talk about Make Epic Money, his latest bestseller, and also the topic of this very first episode of our new series, Make Epic Money. I want to take that from you, Ankur. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you for having me, Anupam, and thank you for being so kind in your introduction.
Those are just facts.
I don't know. I'm not feeling any pressure whatsoever.
Does the fame rest easily on your shoulders?
No. I don't think I have a frame at all for any of those.
Oh man, but welcome to Paisa.
Thank you.
So, it's so nice to have you here.
I've been a long time listener, so it was. This is genuinely something that I was looking forward to. Glad it happened.
Thank you so much. Okay, Make Epic Money. I like that epic is part of all 3 of your books so far, and will be, I assume, because you're going to stop here.
Yes.
Why? Let's go into the background on this. Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book, Anupam, because I figured that when I was growing up, no one, school, college, parents, did a job of teaching me anything about money. All that I was taught was how to earn a living. So I was like, magazmari karo, naukri milegi, fir अच्छे से उसमें काम करना, and you'll earn a salary, and then you'll get promoted, you'll keep earning more salary, and then you'll live happily ever after. That was the playbook. And I was like, convinced, totally, just do that. But I figured that doesn't work. It certainly didn't work for me, and I see so many cases where it didn't work. And I often find that books, when it comes to personal finance, are long, intimidating, boring, technical. They make you feel like you don't know. So you'll never make it. But if you read this book, something may happen, and you only have to thank the author. So I wanted to write for a very different generation, which doesn't read books, have perhaps never picked up a book, forget about money, about anything in life. They are Instagramming their way through life. They're YouTubing their way through life. So they need something which is light, need something that doesn't talk down upon them, something that's very relatable. So I took a dig at what that could be. And with absolute humility that this is certainly not going to be, by any measure, the best book one will read on money. There are fantastic books written out there. I've benefited a lot from them. But this is just a humble attempt to seed that curiosity. Taki agar they want to know more, they can go into those books.
And it's worked, right? Because it's already a bestseller. And what do you think is different? You already mentioned a lot of stuff. And believe me, reaching out to that generation, which has the span of attention of probably a fruit fly. I should not be saying this because I've got a kid who's a teenager. But, and if he's listening in, offense meant probably.
He didn't mean that. He loves you.
Of course. You're a father for 12-year-olds. How is your book different? I mean, it's got, and I know because I've seen it, I've read parts of it.
Yeah.
It's written in a very different format.
Yes.
Vertical scrolling, so that if you're reading it on a screen, it becomes very easy.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a while.
So the one thing that I figured, which is this generation is not reading horizontally. You and I are used to reading books left to right. and long sentences. So our eyes actually go there. But this generation is reading up to down. They're reading vertically because they're also swiping up, swiping up, swiping up. So the book, if at all it has to appeal to them, has to be in that same format. It just needs to be something which is consumable according to theirs. So when you look at the book and you open up a page, very rarely would somebody be able to keep that page away because the page is inviting. It's very white spacey. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I have to read all of this to get this. And it's also in their language. I'm using abbreviations. I'm using their own idiosyncrasies. I'm using their own slang. I'm not speaking my words. I'm speaking theirs. And that, I think, forms that connect. So the early feedback of the book is it's such a simple read. And I finished it in 2 hours, 3 hours. And I didn't even realize that I was reading a book because it felt like you were talking to us.
Wow.
And that, I think, works.
Amazing. So, given the audience that you have for your book and the previous books, of course, what would you suggest to them so that they can manage their money more effectively? I mean, I know that's a very broad question.
Yeah.
But maybe some pointers we can just delve upon that. And for details, folks, the book is here. Order it from Amazon, and I'm sure that you'll get to know more. But in general.
Yeah. I think in general, the biggest lesson that I wish I was given in my 20s was there is no hurry to make money, because the best way of making money is to make it slowly. That is when it is retained. That is when you take less risks. That is when you are not gambling with that. And you also get to live your life the way you want to. So there is certainly no imposition to suggest ki save all the money that you can, and then when you're 60 and you have no teeth and no limbs and nothing, you'll have crores of rupees. What's the point of that money? And at the same time, there's no point in living life like YOLO, you live only once, and throw all that money away. And when there is no income, or if some emergency happens, you have nothing to rely on. There's a balance to be found. It's amazing how many conversations happen in the world around work-life balance, but there aren't too many conversations that happen around money-life balance, which is you have your money and there is some part of it that goes towards your essentials, some part that goes towards your desire, some part that goes towards your future self. And if you were to do that, it's not rocket science. It's very, very doable. And you'll be surprised at how far it will take you. I think the biggest thing that I realized, Anupam, was that when I speak to someone in their 20s and I tell them invest for at least 10 years, I'm essentially asking them to do something that they can't wrap their head around. Because 10 years for them is half their life. So they're like, 10 saal, what are you talking about? 10 saal mein to main booda ho jaunga and I'll be dead. So there is nothing that you can tell them about compounding which will make sense to them. And that's why I think if Albert Einstein ever did say that compounding is there's always a controversy on that. In fact, in the book also, I've written, no, compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. Albert Einstein, apparently. The thing is, this is what he meant, that it takes you time to experience and live life to actually see the benefits of compounding. You can't learn your way through it. So the safest thing that I say is just start investing. Just put the habit of investing in you. If you don't build that habit, with a small salary, you'll never be able to invest even with a big one. Yeah. You have to get into that habit of saving and investing.
The experience part is important.
It is. Yeah. And if you really think about it, Anupam, Indian mothers are phenomenal when it comes to managing money. They have no training, nothing whatsoever, but demonetization happened and suddenly कहाँ से पैसा निकल के आया है? Like, where was this money? गड्डियाँ निकल के आ रही हैं, दाल के डब्बों में से, बिस्तर के नीचे में से, अलमारी में से. Like, how are you saving? And how are you budgeting? दूध वाले को इतना देना है, अखबार वाले को इतना देना है, गैस वाले को इतना देना है. There's something in their DNA that just works clinically, and I wish that knowledge was somehow being transferred to a generation that could adopt that habit.
Imagine that, huh? The mother could have taught so much about personal finance to the kids. And
absolutely. Like, they are the best teachers around that.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a correct age to begin? And how do you think that the Gen Z and Millennials can look at starting? The main, like, how do I start? First, is there an age?
There is no age.
There is no age.
There is no age.
I agree with that,
the famous Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, the next best time is today. And that's true for saving as well. The best time to start saving was yesterday, and the next best time is today. Start. Just start. There's so many people who write to me and say, oh, I'm already 30. Ab kya fayda invest karenge? No. There is still a 20, perhaps a 30-year period before you retire or your income stops. And you have no idea where that can take you. Please start, just start. And the amount does not matter as much as the period does, because your compounding is going to take you in a phenomenally different direction that you can't predict. And by the same measure to the second question you asked, the biggest hesitation is I don't know enough. It's just that I don't know enough. And I don't know what they're doing to know enough, because they aren't. They're just sitting, assuming कि कोई YouTube video आएगा, सब कुछ clear कर देगा, और या किताब आएगी, कुछ सब कुछ clear कर देगी. None of that is going to happen. Our relationship with money, as we saw it when we were growing up, and how our parents dealt with it, and whether we had a lot of it or didn't have a lot of it, it just shapes up our biases. And that just gets us to behave in a way that we do not consciously realize. So the hesitation of I don't know enough is just embedded in your unexpressed risk around money that you don't know how to articulate. So you're like, nahi, kabhi aur. Let me earn some more money. Let me just get more stable. None of that is going to happen. Start. And the best way to do it is just start an SIP. I love the fact that we complain about taxes, perpetually complaining, but we somehow find a way of living with those taxes, because it comes after deduction. So our salaries are X tax. And if you're paying PF, it's X PF. And I ask so many people, hey, how much do you think is there in your PF? They have no idea. No idea. I'm like, do you know you've been investing for 10 years, 15 years, or whatever that amount is, and at a fixed rate of return? That's ridiculous. And the same thing is SIP. Let that money be deducted automatically, so that you bring in the wealthy mindset that it is not income minus expenses that is equal to your investments. It is income minus investments that is equal to your expenses. You pay yourself first. Baki jo bach gaya, manage your month in that. You'll be surprised at how well you'll be able to do it. More importantly, your future self will thank you for the automated deductions that happen. And you have no choice but to manage it in the money left.
So, if someone is listening in here and he's like ready to press a button on the SIP, do you have any specific places where that SIP should start?
I actually made this table in one of those chapters, which is your propensity to invest and also where you invest is always going to be a function of your age and your income. So it can't be the same for everyone, and there can never be one unanimous answer. If you are very young, you can take risk, not because you're risk loving, but because you have time to recover from any downgrade or mistakes that happen. But if you're older, or if you're with a lesser salary and you have responsibilities, you can't take as much risk, and that's obvious. So your combination will be a mix of those. But by large, there are only, in my opinion, 3 mutual funds one should look at. A large cap mutual fund, which is a quote unquote stabler mutual fund. So the large companies invested in, one mid cap mutual fund, and one small cap mutual fund. It's extremely risky as you go down. So from large to small, the risk becomes really high. But over a period of time, the returns can also be very high and according. So you find your balance. If you're young, I would say 60% can easily be in your large cap, 25% in mid cap, 15% in small cap. If you are in, say, in your 40s, you should not invest in small cap. It's gambling with your money. Then be as much as you can in large cap and just stay there. And have your fixed returns, which is your PF or maybe your gold or anything else like that. But there is an entire matrix that I have tried to help people with, and it seems to be received well. So
excellent,
maybe it's working.
So you've also written this book so others don't make the same financial mistakes as you did. Yes. Okay, we can talk about that. And do you think that today's generation is more cautious and aware about finance, right? Because हमारे ज़माने के लोग तो बोलते हैं कि इनको कुछ नहीं आता है, ये लोग तो आजकल के नौजवान, as the meme goes and all that. So 2 questions there. Any mistakes you want to share?
Oh, I've made so many mistakes. I think the biggest one, Anupam, was I've been a startup founder now for nearly 15 years. And around 10 years back, I started to make some healthy money as a startup founder. And at that point of time, I was convinced that people who are investing in mutual funds, stocks, gold, real estate, are duffers of the first order.
Okay.
Because there's only one way to make money, and that's startups. Yeah. And I'm the cool dude who knows that. And I put all of my money in startups, my own startup and other people's startup. I did not understand what liquidity is. I did not understand what IRRs are. I did not understand what risk is. I looked at alpha, which is how much I can get, but zero idea about beta, which is what risk I was taking to get to that point. And I am so glad that I suffered because of it, because that was like the punch I needed in life. I realized it much later, but I did. So, as crazy as it sounds, till the age of 39, all of my money ever made was only and only invested in startups. I had no other investments. So, I am paper rich. I'm like, oh, millionaire with all the stocks and everything, but it hasn't amounted to anything, literally nothing. Classic frog in the well mistake of living in your own bubble and figuring that that is the only world. My second big mistake was when I first made a little bit of money back in 2009, just like any other middle class Indian, I was like, इससे हम घर खरीदेंगे. And क्यों खरीदेंगे, क्या खरीदेंगे, कोई सर नहीं, कोई पैर नहीं, जाके घर खरीद लिया, home loan लेके. And I sold that after 3 years. And I sold it for a higher price than I had bought it at. Sure. But after I adjusted for the interest paid and the brokerage charges and the registration fee and the capital gain, blah, 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 my return was less than the FD return that I would have got in that period. And I thought that I'm like the cool MBA who knows shit and blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. So classic cardinal mistake that I've made time and again. But when I look at this generation today, I see this... very interesting dichotomy. The dichotomy is they are certainly very well aware about money, a lot more than we were. It's not that they've been taught, but they've been exposed. So there is, of course, content that's out there. There are books which are fantastic, and there's enough and more literature. But they're also, my opinion, in a hurry to make that money. A lot faster than we were. Maybe because some point of time we realized that it takes time. And I often reflect upon this, that our generation, Anupam, was perhaps blessed not by design, but by a stroke of luck. That we were born in a country during a time where to get anything we had to wait. Everything was a line. Everything was a waiting period. Whether it was a phone or it was a car or it was your favorite Hindi music songs, Wednesday 7 p.m. Chitrahar, or it was a movie that was only released at a predetermined time or came on television, we had no choice but to wait. So we, for no glorified reason for ours, learnt what it is to wait. And we saw our parents also waiting all their life, working in one job only, 30, 40 years, retiring and blah, blah, blah. So maybe subconsciously दिमाग में बैठ गया था कि जिंदगी में अच्छी चीज़ें टाइम से ही आती हैं. But here this generation does not know what to wait. And it's not their fault. They are born in a world where books, click, food, click, cab, click, movies, click, everything, speed of thought delivered at your doorstep. So they have no training on how to wait. They've seen how money can change lives. They are exposed to that. So they genuinely believe that the best time and the only time to make money is in your 20s. Because by the time you are, say, settled, married, perhaps have kids, that era is gone. And like FIRE has suddenly become this thing, financially independent, retire early. And I get people writing in emails saying, I'm 22, Ankur, tell me what is the way to become a crorepati by 24. And like, there is no way. And if there's anybody who's giving you away, that person is not your friend. Because there's nothing that can legitimately give you that much of money in just 2 years when you're starting from zero. I would say don't even try to get to that point because you'll take unnecessary risks. When there is beautiful, slow, passive way of making money while living your happy life, no risks involved. But that's the dichotomy. They know a lot more, but that's also the fallacy because then they feel that they want to do it instantly.
What about making mistakes? You have a message out there for our listeners?
I say that the only way to learn from mistakes is to make them, but mistakes can be very costly. So my message, which I wish I had done earlier in my life, but I do it consciously now, is do something nearly every day where you know you will fail, but the cost of that failure is very low. Put yourself into those situations. For example, go to a mall and ask somebody for 500 rupees. You will 99% of the times be turned down. But how that rejection happens will train you a lot into how to process a rejection. They may be physically violent. They may abuse you. They may ignore you. They may call the cops on you. And you will have to react in real time. And that is how you improvise on what is something you were not prepared for. Say good morning to somebody in the elevator when you're going to that office of yours. Go and ask for a lift from somebody. Like things that maybe we used to do and we didn't realize that they were actually not even unsafe at that point of time. They were just safe, but right now it's become unsafe. But just do things where the cost of failure is not high, and yet you know that there is this training that I'm getting on making mistakes, learning from how to respond to them.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on fire yourself? I mean,
I do.
Please go for it.
I think we have reached a stage in this world where opportunities and talent has combined to very reasonably get people to fire by 40, 45. You don't have to work till 60. If you are, of course it's your choice. And I can't imagine myself never working, but I shouldn't be in a point where I have to be like, "Arey yaar, zindagi jeene ke liye aaj fir se office jana padega." That shouldn't be your life. So your life is, you earned enough that by 40 you don't have to work for money anymore. And then you still choose to work because you enjoy that work, or you love that work, or you love the people that you work with. Anything like that. But it shouldn't be a compulsion for you to work. So I think reasonably 40 to 45 is the go-getter age where people can financially retire, maybe not professionally.
Yeah. So you're saying I'm looking at a 20-year runway, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that someone gets an MBA, starts his first job at 25. So in 20 years, it is possible.
Easily.
Yeah. Are there any numbers out there? I mean, epic money sounds, of course, very, very good.
You know, the beauty about epic money is a very personal definition, because epic could be like 100 crore for someone and 1 crore for someone. Yeah. I have a QR code to a video that I had made, which is one of my favorite videos of all time. It is, how much money do you need to live life?
I was just, there you go. Yeah.
Because people don't have that answer. So it's almost like running a race where you don't know what the finish line is. So you will be perpetually running. You will never know when to stop, and you will not stop. Because the minute you stop, you will think you're losing the race, when the truth is you may have won far earlier, but you didn't know. So please sit with yourself, irrespective of your age. You could be very young or perhaps midway into your life, and just figure out, for all the things that you have to do, for all the things that you want to do, for all the things that you desire to do in the future, how much money will that need? Do a present value calculation of that and find out how much money do you need right now. And at that point, once you hit that number, which will be surprisingly easy to hit once you know that number, start a new life where you're not chasing money anymore. And you are enjoying that money that you have earned and doing all the things that you have. But people don't know that number. Yeah. They just don't.
Those retirement calculators just don't go below 15 crores, do they?
It's like, and when you ask people, it's so amazing. Yeah. I ask people, do you know how much you need to live life? And people will either say 400 crore. Which is like, do you even know how to spend 1 crore, forget 400 crore, just because the number looks great doesn't mean that it's right now. And then there'll be this other completely different one, which are Zen, Buddha mode, like 10 lakh. And like, no, 10 lakh mein na zindagi nahi ji sakte. Like, I love you for your just honest views on how you think you should live life, but no, I wish the world was just as pure as you are. You have to know the number.
You have to know the number. What next after this? Yeah? What do you? I mean, do you have another book planned? I mean,
a book a year. A book a year.
Get out. Seriously.
I wish
I could do that.
I'm a very, very process-driven person, Anupam. So I have no goals, no ambitions, no targets in life. I don't want to be anywhere. I don't even know where I want to be or where I care to be. I will just show up and do the same thing every single day of my life. And I don't get bored with doing that. I can eat the same food every day. I can wear the same clothes every day. I can create the same content every day. So I am just clinically saying, this is what I have to do. And where it takes me, I've always been surprised and humbled. And I'm sure life will treat me well if I continue to. So I never know the answer to what's next, because my answer is I'm just doing the same thing that I was doing yesterday, and I'll continue doing the same thing tomorrow.
A book a year is pretty impressive, though.
It is. It is something that.
What does the process work? I mean, are you like at one go person, or do you space this out, or what?
No, it's a one go thing. It's a 3-month sprint.
See, yeah.
And literally 3 months. I start in May, June, July. The first draft is ready. Then I'll spend almost all of August and September editing. And then I'll send it over by October, November for print.
Yeah.
And because you're churning so much of content, there is already, of course, the book in some shape and form written for you. And I just have to pick this up and structure it and curate it and give it a structure and think of my audience always, because I'm writing for somebody who doesn't read books. So it's also very easy for me to do that because I don't have to at any point feel the pressure of sounding smart. I don't have to pretend that I'm smart. So it just eases off the pressure because I'm just writing for somebody who wants simple language to be read.
And I'm glad that you're writing. I love people who write. And I love people who write books. I believe there will always be, in the world of Instagrams and the world of Twitter and the world of Facebook, there will always be a place for a book on a shelf. And as long as that's there, I think the world is still a pretty good place to live in.
I should genuinely
shout out to our good folks at Penguin for encouraging
totally.
authors.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Two of their authors sitting out and having a
absolutely.
conversation. But we look forward to your next book next year.
Thank you.
This part of the episode was about the book, Make Epic Money. Head over to Amazon, Flipkart, or support your local bookstore.
Yeah,
How was
absolutely.
that? And buy the book. Believe me, it's definitely worth your money. And I hope it makes them make epic money, right? Let's talk about the single most challenging thing that you seem to do effortlessly, which is create content. And I call it challenging because, well, there's tons of content everywhere. If the lockdown taught us one thing, is that we have more than 24 hours a day, which physically we don't.
Yes.
But we've got this appetite for consumption, right? You're a founder, CEO, entrepreneur, you wear multiple hats. What drove you to content creation? Let's start from there.
So while I would say that I'm a happy and very lucky produce of the COVID time when people had a lot of time on their hands, I've been creating content, Anupam, since 2005. So when I went to ISB for my MBA, every day was such a fresh new day. So much was hitting me. And as a business school student, I thought, oh my God, I have to tell the world about this and this and this. So I started a blog. And that blog still runs. I have been writing that blog every single day for the last 18 years, never stopped. And that is my writing space. So I love writing. I genuinely write for myself. This book is just a happy outcome of that writing experience and practice. So that's when it started. And then in 2012, when I was running Groupon, it was very obvious to us that talent was going to be the biggest differentiator. And the only way to reach talent at that point of time was through recruitment agencies or through press or through PR. And we were not the most well-known brand. We were not the ones who were paying the most. So we felt that there has to be a direct way of reaching out to potential talent. And that's when I started creating content as the founder on LinkedIn, on Quora. And then in 2016, Instagram and YouTube happened. So it started for a very different reason, which was to express my own self and, of course, to attract talent for my startups. But in 2020, when everyone was locked up and so was I started thinking of all the things that I've done so far. Could it become bigger? I didn't have that answer, but I gave it a shot. And here we are. Thankfully, things worked out.
Trick question, Blogspot or WordPress?
Ooh, I started with Blogspot and now I'm on WordPress.
I hear you.
Alienman.blogspot.com. Like we are from that era.
From that era.
Half of the world will not even know what you're talking about.
Blogspot is about. You passed that test really well. Okay, let's say there's someone who's listening into this conversation and now wants to create content. Independent. Let's just call it independent content creation. Yeah. What is that world like? And what's a good starting point for it for someone who's listening to this and wants to jump into that?
There are 3 steps to that, Anupam. Number one is a slightly philosophical one, which is you have to answer the question, why do you want to do this? And that answer needs to be very clear. It doesn't need to be the right answer, right? So you could be doing it for fame as well. You could be doing it for vanity as well. And that's absolutely fine as long as you're honest with yourself and know why you're doing it. Most people, because they don't have that why, begin to fail because they are not feeling that why as they move along that journey. They thought it was for a different thing, but it's actually for a very different thing. And when the two don't reconcile, they start losing their motivation. So start with the why. It's a very, very important conversation to have with your own self. Number 2, identify who do you want to speak to. This is supremely critical because if you're trying to create content for everybody, you're creating content for nobody. You need to speak to a person. For example, on YouTube, I'm speaking to somebody who's potentially 26 years of age, is most likely a male, is a software engineer, comes from tier 2 India, is working in tier 1 India, earns between 6 to 9 lakhs of income, and watches YouTube for entertainment as well as information. That's the audience I'm speaking to. And I always keep that audience in front of me when creating content, because if it doesn't appeal to them, it wouldn't appeal to anybody else. Now, does that mean that only such people are watching my content? No. There will be people outside of this, but I am not creating for them. And if at any point of time they check out of my content, I will never feel bad, because this is my TG and I'm speaking to them. And then number 3, basis who you are speaking to and why do you want to speak to them, identify your platform. It could be a completely different platform for what you thought. YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and any place else, they're very, very distinct. I'm shocked every single day at the non-overlap of these platforms when it comes to even my content.
Yeah.
I have cumulative 10 million people, but the overlap will be less than 5%. And it's shocking that people will come to me and like, oh my God, we consume your content on LinkedIn, and they have no idea what I do on YouTube and no idea of my existence on Instagram.
That. Are you serious?
It is
Wow.
It is so wild to me
Okay.
that they see one side of me and that's the only side they know of and nothing beyond. While maybe someone like you or the creator space or the content creator or entrepreneurs be like, tum yahan bhi ho, yahan bhi ho, yahan bhi ho, like picha chhod do hamara. But
for the large audiences,
like they are just focused on one, and that's where the conversation is. And then when you get these 3 things together, the surprising thing, which should not be surprising upon hindsight, is content wins by consistency. Content does not win by virality. Content does not win by production. Content does not win by looking good, speaking well and all that. Content is only and only going to reward consistency. क्योंकि अगर आप consistent नहीं है, you will never be able to either impress the algorithm or the audience. So both of them will check out. And if you're consistent, the algorithm will certainly know you and love you. And the audience will automatically then begin to see that, because the algorithm will support you in so many ways that you could not have wrapped your head around.
Yeah, I'm going to circle back to the last point because it's very important. But folks, I'm going to just summarize. It's basically why, who, and where. Start with why. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Go to who. Who are you doing this for?
Yeah.
And then go to where. As in, where do you want to post this?
That's a great summary.
So there you go, folks. That's anyone sitting out there who want to start. That's a good place to start. Consistency, dude. That's ups and downs. Tell me about your downs. Because what I'm saying is
absolutely.
to reach that,
sure,
and you're seriously consistent.
Yeah.
It requires an amount of perseverance also that doesn't come easy, by the way.
I'll respectfully disagree when I put in a nuance that has worked for me. And the nuance is, you struggle to be consistent if you're doing something that is not authentically you. For example, if you are not somebody who is authentically or wishes to be authentically a fit person, you will struggle to go to the gym. You'll struggle to eat right. You'll struggle to follow a protocol around diet or health or whatnot. But if you are authentically that, even if the results are delayed or not showing as well as they should be, you will just show up because that's you. That's just you. And I wish I had a better answer, because this almost seems to suggest that content should be authentically you or should come naturally to you. But maybe that is the answer. And that may mean not everyone should become a content creator. Not everyone should become an entrepreneur. Not everyone should become a writer. Yeah. Not everyone should attempt to be in the movies. There is something that is authentically available for you and is truly yours. And your journey in life is to find what that is. I found mine, and I'm so happy that I did whenever it happened. But I am not lying when I say this, Anupam. For me, doing what I do is effortless. I wish I could tell people how easy it is for me to do it. That's not because I'm privileged or special or have some superpowers. It's just because I'm doing something that is authentically me. And I don't have to pretend to be somebody else when I do this.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, right? Because this is probably, I don't know, the 451st episode, 7 years, etc., etc. So you bring a lot of love to what you do.
Yeah.
So do I. But that love has its phases. So maybe you want to just talk to our listeners about the stuff that when times don't work for you. And you've had your share of that.
Absolutely.
I think there's been some stuff about events here and there,
yes,
endorsements here and there that did not work.
Exactly.
And how does one deal? I mean, how do you deal with that, for example? Because, hold on, I'm not through here. The thing is that The previous generation did not have the concept of social media or hearing feedback and criticism.
Yeah.
Okay, right? And that was, you write a book and you're done.
Correct.
ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा एक review आ जाएगा and you'll say कि book बकवास है. Now you put a video, you are shit.
Yes.
This does not work.
Yes.
You are ugly, you are pathetic. Okay? Of course, that comes along with the adulation also. Let's not,
Yes.
So how do you handle those down phases?
There are several things at play. One, I am just lucky that I'm doing this at 44 and not 24. When you are at 44, you've just seen so much shit in life that some random person's opinion on you who doesn't even know you and will never know you is the last thing that would bother. And I genuinely mean it when I say that. But then, of course, there are times when it comes through and it doesn't come through in a polite manner. I somehow have got to this point where I'm able to distinguish between the tonality of what's being said and what is trying to be said. For example, there are so many people who write in and saying, Ankur, every time we open up YouTube, why the F do we have to see your ad? It's not funny how many times I get this email or this DM, Ankur, get off our face every time we are on YouTube. Why do we have to see your face? And da 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 da. And it'll come with, of course, all the choicest of BCs and MCs with it. So I'll be like, okay, you know what? Let's start with the assumption कि ये इंसान सुबह उठ के ये नहीं बोल रहा था कि आज मैं अंकुर वारिकू की जिंदगी तहस-नहस करूंगा. He doesn't know me. She doesn't care about my life. They have their own tough life as well. So if something happened that drove them to this action, let me just distill the tonality and remove all the cuss words and focus on the message. And very often I will find when I focus on the message, there is something for me to take away.
Something valuable.
Something valuable,
My
something that I can
experience.
fix, something that will only improve me. Because then I will give them a lesser chance to feel bad and to come back at me. So that's the second one.
Yeah.
And then the third bigger one is somebody's life must be really broken to be shitting on somebody else, which is a complete stranger. So the instant reaction is empathy. Yeah, I don't know what must be going in this person's life to be doing that. Like I'll get emails at 4 a.m, which will be filled with the choicest of cuss words. And like, this must be a really hard life for 4 a.m. to be awake and to be writing an email from a anon email account to somebody who has genuinely not done anything to your life, but has just showed up with several more ads than he or she should have. And I think that's just part and parcel of how this journey is. I don't think it is something that I take to heart. Again, I feel that my age has a lot to do with that and the experience that's come with it.
So I think the message here for anybody out there who's listening to this and wants to start his own channel or his own independent content creation is that don't let the criticism get to you,
It'll be hard because it's just I feel that there's a fun thing that we do and it's really helped. So we have a Google Drive. I've shared this with the entire team, and the Google Drive has 3 folders. One is funny, second is hate, and third is love. So whenever I have any of these situations, I add it to either of these 3 folders, and I tell them, whenever you're getting bored and you don't know what to do and you don't want to watch Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, just go and check out the funny folder. Kuch वहाँ लोग लिख रहे होंगे, some memes around us, something around this. It's always fun. If you ever feel like you're the shit and you're like the king of the world and you've done it in life and we are like Ankur Warikoo and blah, 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 go to the hate folder. You'll instantly be brought down to earth. And whenever you feel like, यार, what's the point of doing this? मतलब हम ये record कर रहे हैं, किसी की ज़िंदगी में कुछ फ़र्क पड़ भी रहा है वगैरह वगैरह. Go to the love folder because that's when you will see people who genuinely have had their life change because of what we have done. And I like that balance because then it just brings us to reality and keeps us honest.
And I'm guessing the love folder is fairly larger than the other two. At least I hope so.
I actually, by design, like the hate folder to be fairly larger.
Yeah. But I have to ask you, Mr. Ankur Warikoo, are you covered at the airport? Do you have an airport look? That's when I know you're a true celebrity, huh?
No,
Not
I
yet?
don't.
Get out. Seriously.
This is just it. I have the same face and the same posture everywhere. It's people like that. Do you carry a mannequin with you? Because you're literally the same every picture and everything and just doing this like, yeah.
Maybe that's why the paps don't go after you.
Perhaps.
I'm going to,
I'm certainly not very exciting for any pap. Yeah.
But I'm going to wait on that. Maybe you'll be there. Okay. So what is the investment like? That probably you started with. That I want to make this into 2 questions.
Sure.
What is the investment like what are the large cost centers for you? How big is your team, etc.?
Got it. Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about that. So, for the first 5 years of my content journey, which was quote unquote the serious content journey, the only investment was my time. And I was shooting from my iPhone, and I had a lav mic which costed 5,000 rupees and a tripod. And every video out there was just that, nothing else. It was raw, it was honest, and it was just straight. No editing, no subtitling, nothing whatsoever. Then in 2020, when I set up the team and I got that in order, the team that I recruited was a video editor who will do the finishing touches. The platform in charge who would be responsible for distributing the content, making sure that it goes on time and so on. One person who's a visual designer, so thumbnails and any pictures and something that needs to be done. And I'm glad that we made this investment. We also invested in an audio engineer, somebody who could work on the voice. Because if you asked me, camera, lights, audio, I would have said audio last देखेंगे ना, audio क्या फर्क पड़ता है? We're just so
for a primarily video product.
Yes, exactly. Right? Because I didn't have any background or basis to even assume that audio should be number one.
Yeah.
Clearly, audio should be number one. It is the absolute determinant of quality. And then comes your light, and in the end comes a camera. Because today, even good quality phones can do a good job of 4K, but your audio will come from a good quality one and your lights will come from good quality lights. So the investments were then made in that direction. So we got a good mic, condenser, we got good lights, we purchased a good camera, and then we had the team that was running. This was largely a freelancer team. So there were no full-time roles made and so on. We're now at a size, Anupam, where we are a total of 16 people, where 5 of them are full-time, 11 of them are freelancers and part-time. And they manage both content plus the startup that I run, which is in education called WebVeda. And between these 16 people, we have everything covered. 9 of them are core to the team that we call Warikoo. And that's like the core team. Like they came up with the name, not me. I'm not narcissistic. But they...
Give me a break.
Like, I swear, it's like everything.
Gang of girls
like,
or something. That
no, nothing. It's like this 9. This is like the close team, because we are a remote team. So
okay, no, fine.
Like
let's go with it. Let's go with the flow. Warikoo. This should actually be a shout out to the Warikoo.
Yes.
Okay. And
they have their own handle, by the way. They have their own social media handle. They have a following of 40,000 people. They're having their own fun. उनकी अपनी दुनिया चल रही है.
I want this to be an official shout out to the Warikoo, to the good folks at IVM, Abhay sir, Shubhankar, our producers out there, because they do all the heavy lifting. Folks, believe me, people like me and Ankur have the easier job, right?
Exactly.
These are the guys who
totally
do a very good job doing the heavy lifting. Like, for example, right now we've got some guy on some above floor doing some major drilling, and the job of taking that out belongs to Shubhankar, who's sitting right here with us. So shout out to the Warikoo, to the IVM guys, and to everybody who makes a finished product looked much better than it is. Okay, how different are the economics of independent content creation for various social media platforms? Like when you're doing something maybe for, and you've won some serious awards on Insta, on LinkedIn, Top Voices, etc.
Sure.
So obviously you're doing a very good job. So how does the economics work for these platforms?
Every platform is very, very different. So I'll start with the best monetizable platform is Instagram, because surprisingly, it doesn't allow you to make money from the platform, unlike say YouTube, where you can run ads on your videos and make money from it. But Instagram has this massive brand collaboration business, which I wasn't privy to when I started, and it got only obvious when I did it. So brands will come and will say, hey, we want to tie up with you, and you can insert our product or our service in your conversation, in your reels and blah, blah, blah. And you make a lot of money through that. Surprisingly and shockingly, a lot of money. For example, somebody who has 1 million followers can easily charge anywhere between 3 to 6 lakhs per reel, which is ridiculous for that
effort.
Of course, the effort in building that million is there. But once you've gotten to that point, then you're just monetizing your distribution and your retention, which is great. YouTube's come second. What really works for YouTube is if you are your own brand, let's say you are running your own D2C, you've become like the Mr. Beast, where you are launching your own brand, your own merch, your own chocolates or whatnot. YouTube generously allows you to link outside of the platform. have affiliate income coming in from other brands that you want to endorse. So YouTube is great from that perspective. Lesser money than Instagram, but certainly something that is a lot more control in there. LinkedIn, I'd say, is the least direct revenue making platform. Indirect, brilliant. I get almost all of my corporate talks because of LinkedIn.
Great
Why?
for
Because
reputation, yeah.
exactly, right? All the right people are there. All the CHROs are there. All the CXOs are there. So they will seek me out if they like my content. But it's indirect. There is no direct pass through of that. It's very hard to sell anything on LinkedIn. It's very hard to do brand collaborations because people rarely do it. And then Twitter will be the hardest because Twitter in general is a very hard platform. And most of Indians have not figured, including me. Like, while I have a certain number, but I don't think I've cracked Twitter at all.
I hear you. I have no idea what they've done with that platform. I mean, over the last few years. But who are the content creators you admire? You just mentioned Mr. Beast. So you have the top tier out there. Whether it's, I don't know. So what's your list like?
There are a bunch. I think the one that is a forever inspiration is Gary Vaynerchuk, from whom I think I learned almost all of content creation because he's been at it for like donkey's years, 15 plus years, and I love his consistency. In the newer age ones, Mr. Beast is certainly someone that I look up to just for his audacity, nothing else. Sahil Bloom is great on Twitter, and of course mushrooming very well on LinkedIn and now YouTube. Ali Abdal is one of my favorite YouTubers. I really like his content. Very honest, very straight, direct. And that would largely be the ones that I actively follow. And then I come across content pieces that would come in there. So that will be topical depending on the conversation, depending on the mood.
Sure. So what are the key revenue centers for a content creator? Like someone who's aspiring to be one, hearing this, what should he be looking at?
So you begin with ads, and ads would be platform specific. So if you're on YouTube, you can just turn on that ads once you're eligible. And for every ad that is run on your video, you make money. Second is affiliate income. So you can share links of other brands. If people click on that link and were to make a purchase, you get a percentage of that. Third is brand collaborations, where you would just work brands and you get in that endorsement. Fourth will be direct selling. So you could be selling anything that you have. It could be your books, it could be your merchandise, it could be your courses, and so on. And then fifth is endorsements, where you would quote unquote run ads or sponsorships, where you'd be like, hey, I'm not I'm not speaking about this product, but this video is just sponsored by X. And it's like television, right? Which is, there may be no affinity, but it just works. And each one of them, depending on the platform, will have a different scale and a different likelihood of success, depending on your scale.
It's amazing how the creators, unique. I mean, assuming that he is putting himself in front of the camera like you are, right? When you mentioned about how you started with an iPhone, I don't know whether, again, there's a Delhi Bombay thing, because I recall Karan Johar saying that when he did Rocky Rani, Rocky was based on a lot of the, the Insta and the TikTok influencers in Delhi who just put themselves out there.
Totally.
They just put themselves out there.
Rocky was just so Delhi. He was so Delhi.
That's what I'm talking about,
yes.
right? And that was inspired by by a lot of people who actually. So I get what I'm getting from your conversation is a lot of authenticity of who you are, and a lot of hard work actually goes into this content creation. Assuming that you yourself are the person in front of the camera, you think that's true.
It is true. It is true. But if you are a one-person show, it can be intensely hard. If you abstract yourself from saying, hey, I don't have to macromanage everything, my best comes in when I am quote-unquote producing. So I'm shooting, I'm acting, I'm perhaps even directing. But after that, somebody else is taking care of all the things, and I just have to
focus on
make sure that it's done in the right way. Then you lift a lot of pressure off you. And maybe my 15 years of training as a startup founder taught me that, because I used to be a micromanager and I used to be a control freak. But then I learned the art of just letting go, and to this point where I don't even look at my content before it goes to the millions of people that it's going out to.
I mean, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of the audience that you just mentioned. 25, 26, software engineer, earning the money that he's earning, tier 2 city. This guy, and male, is starting up on his own. He has no crew.
Correct.
Okay, so he's going to put himself out there in front of his iPhone or whatever it is. Maybe he has 5,000 to put into him, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. So for him to start that journey and then to go through its ups and downs and reach a certain phase is going to take some effort, because he's looking at a regular income.
Yes.
He wants to make this a livelihood.
Yes.
Okay, he wants to answer when his parents come and say, "क्या बकवास कर रहे हो? फोन के सामने कौन नाचता है, गाता है?" We've seen this. It's a trope, but it's also a lot of it is based on reality.
Sure.
Is regular income even possible from content creation?
Only after 2 years. Only after 2 years.
And this is a long time.
It's a really long time, which is why most people drop out. It's funny you're asking me this question. Aaj subah hi at TechSparks, which was the event that I was at, somebody said, hey, how can I get to your distribution? I'm like, it's very simple. Do it for 10 years. And they're like, no, but how can I get it in 2 years? I'm like, you can't. It's as simple as that. You can buy your way through it, but that will be stupid, because none of that will be retained. None of that will be engaged. But if you want to do it, then it will take that time. And I don't think people realize that last man standing is actually a strategy. It's not just a life approach. It's a strategy. Because during COVID, I distinctly remember, and I'm sure you do as well, 2020, first lockdown of this country, everyone's home, and there were webinars, Anupam, left, right and center. हर 15 मिनट में कोई webinar कर रहा था. Free, this, that. People had started creating content on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, etc. And I remember tweeting at that point of time, it doesn't matter who's creating content right now. What will matter is when all of this is over, who will still be creating content? And that's just true. Yeah. So many people in the last 3 years just died out. They just fizzled out completely. And look at you at 400 plus. People will come and it's like, oh, I've started this podcast. I want to bring you on. I like, here's the best thing that I do. I sign me up for your podcast. I don't even know you. I don't know the quality of it. Sign me up, but I will only come as the 100th guest. Because when you've done 99 episodes, I know that you have it in you to do 400 more. But less than 0.1% will ever get there, because they just fizzle out.
Amazing. That consistency part is something that's lost on a lot of people, but I think that the guys who survive actually do make it, and it's the last man standing that you just said.
Last man standing.
Yeah. I think we are kind of done. I usually have a final question from all my guests who come in, which is stuff that they're reading, watching, that they like to share with our, with our viewers, listeners. Anything that you're up to nowadays?
I am reading this fascinating book. It's called What I Learned About Investing from Darwin.
Oh, Pullav Prasad.
Yes, my God, what a book. What, huh?
Have you met him?
I have never met him.
I have met him like 25 years ago when he was at Warburg.
My God, I was like, what a book. I of course then went down the rabbit hole. Who is Pullav? What is Nalanda? Why did I not know of it to the extent that I did? Of course, I've heard of it, but never as this book and this author, and of course, nearly not as the ideology and approach. I'm thoroughly enjoying the book. It's so good. For somebody who's interested in biology and evolution and Darwinian theory, it's such a brilliant insight into investing from that.
Amazing how many lessons you can learn for your own investments.
Absolutely.
Other than the concepts that are out there.
Exactly.
Anything that you're watching these days?
I don't watch anything.
Huh.
For
a content creator who puts a lot of stuff
no,
out there.
I'm very hypocritical in that sense. I can't commit myself to any series. मुझे लगा यार कौन देखेगा ये इतना लंबा चल रहा है. The only thing that I recently started to was Poacher on Amazon Prime. But no, it takes an insane effort for me to just
Plans
commit
for
myself.
Entertainment. I mean, a separate series. You want to star in a series?
Stand
up. A lot of people like.
I like being in front of the camera. I'm very comfortable with it. I've done my share of ads and idhar udhar kuch. And people say that I'm natural, but I refuse to believe them. I think they're just being nice. But I have zero ambitions to be in this space.
I hope you do get into that. I hope I do catch your airport look. Okay, even if this is pretty cool. And I hope that the paparazzi comes after you. Folks, that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. Ankur Warikoo needs no introduction. I think I'm kind of done. But Ankur, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anupam. This was super fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you. Absolutely.
IVM